Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. It is Wednesday. It is noon, so that's another time for our Lunch and Learns here with Worldwide Stereo. I'm your man, Adam, and it is episode 16, and it's going to be all about car stealth and safety. So we got an interesting guest on with us today. He works for us, and we're going to talk a lot about those things like remote starters, radar detection, dash cams, all those things for a car. We did a car stereo episode a little while ago, so you want to catch that. That was more geared towards the sound quality and what we can do with speakers and installations and things like that. So, and this one we wanted to save specifically again, so we could talk more about again those remote starters and the camera systems that are out there, radar detection. I mean, Worldwide Stereo, as if many of you do know, we got our start in 1979, and back then it was a strip mall, and it had a Lee's Hoagie House on one side, and then we had also the muffler shop on the other. And we acquired, hey, there you are, Chris. Brought you in a little early there. Sorry about that. We acquired as they went out there, and we got those shops in the car stereo business. I mean, we were one of the ones way back in the day, the early people that started doing the car stereo. And even today, there's fewer and fewer shops out there doing car stereo installation the way we are doing it on site with our garage. And we got guys, Frank, our installer, and Ross, that's been with us for a long time doing installations and just doing a knockout killer job, customizing things like Jeeps and Porsches. One of the Porsches we did was the fourth best sounding car in the world. When my buddy here, Chris, I meant to do here, I have to do it. Or my normal little overlay. I just can't not do it.
You're short-circuiting right now.
Okay, there we go. Hey, Chris.
Right. Now it's official.
Now it's official. You're actually here. Nobody's really been doing it like we had in the past, and right now, and cars have changed so much in terms of what they already come with, what people are looking to do, the technology that is available to them. So that's what we want to focus on today and talk about those things. One last thing I want to remind everybody out there, Worldwide Stereo showrooms are indeed open Tuesday through Saturday, Tuesday through Friday. We are 9 to 5, Saturday 10 to 5. Just ask that you mask up when you come in, but we're here to help you. And our showrooms are open. We have our demo sale going on still, so there's still some great demos that you can grab from our showrooms, TVs, speakers, amplifiers, and also on our website we have our sweepstakes going on, where you can enter to win. It's a vinyl sweepstakes, and that way we're giving away a Rega Planar 1 with a pair of Cantud powered speakers called the Tux. And we're giving also the Worldwide Stereo vintage cork mat to go along with that. So great setup. I recommend that turntable to a lot of my clients. And those speakers, I've sold many pairs of those. Very impressed. There's also if you want to check out a YouTube product video on the Cantud Tux, it's definitely out there. So, okay, let's dig in, Chris. Let's start getting into the car stereo side of things here and talking about all these remote starters. Please remember, everybody, if you have any very vehicle specific questions here, I'm going to put up Chris's information here. So if you say, oh, I got this, 2000, blah, 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 whatever, and you really want to talk about your car specifically, please give Chris a call there. You see our number 215-368-8343 and his email address as well. And you can reach out and talk to him directly. So, Chris, car audio, you've been doing it a long time. What's your background? How'd you get involved in it? Like from an early on. I've been working with you for close to 15 years now with two different companies, but now I've been Worldwide Stereo for the past 11 or 12 years. So just give a little brief background.
Sure. I started with Worldwide Stereo back in 2008. I've been in the car department ever since then. Prior to that, I was with Tweeter, formerly known as Bryn Mawr Stereo and Video. That's where I got my feet wet with it. It started out as kind of more of a hobby, and then like installing car audio on the side, not being into it but not knowing a lot about it. And then at Tweeter, I was introduced to the side of it a bit more with an actual job and selling it. So I became much more interested in it then, and here I am now, and it's been a fun path.
Yep, I see. I inspired the beard. That's good.
You did, yeah. I was like, man, yeah, you did. A small part of it.
I want to say hi to some of our friends out there. Peter, thank you so much. We see you every week. Thank you so much for joining. Joseph, another one. Thank you for joining from Connecticut. Thank you so much for watching. Carlos, he's already got a question here real quick. They used to sell the stereo recorder for the car. Whatever happened to that idea? The stereo recorder for the car. Do you know?
I don't know if you want to be. No, I don't know if you want to be playing around with some sort of recording device while operating a vehicle. So I'm sure that probably made that idea short-lived.
Could be. Kirby, hey there, South New Jersey. How you doing? Thank you so much for joining. Mr. Mark Davis. Always
Hey, Mark.
A pleasure. Thank you for joining. And Steve, a repeat offender many times.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for checking us out. So like we said, today we're kind of getting into, let's start with the first one. I think that's certainly a really popular gift item. I mean, I think our phones would typically start ringing in the July and August time frame for people booking gift ideas for the holidays for a remote starter. So let's start out with that. All right, it's maybe kind of obvious, but let's just go over the basics. What's a remote starter, kind of how it works? Yeah,
remote starter is just that. It's a way to remotely start the vehicle. Generally, you're using some sort of remote to do that. Mm-hmm. Things have changed a little bit, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more with the ways of activating a remote start. Yeah. But traditionally, it's something it's more heavily used in the winter where people want to warm their vehicle up. So they'll remote start the vehicle. It's sitting out in the driveway, let's say. It starts up. And the engine's warming up, the vehicle's warming up. So by the time you get out to it, let's say 10, 15 minutes later, it's nice and comfortable and there for your ride into work. Right. The other reason why people are calling us now, Adam, in July, August, is because this is Pennsylvania's hottest time of the year. So people will get it for air conditioner activation. So the car turns on, the air conditioner turns on because the customer had left it on prior to exiting the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And now the car is cooling down again, making it more comfortable for the driver when he or she gets to the car.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I'm somewhat of a polar bear. So this is definitely the time of year that I use the remote start way more. Yep. I mean, the wintertime, I put my windows down. So yeah, don't really need the remote start as much. I use it more in the summertime because I like the cold weather anyway. So I'm of that. Yep. So we got Steve actually already kind of came up with a question that I think is burning in the hearts of many people here. And that is, how do remote starters work on cars with manual transmissions?
Well, there's kits that are dedicated for vehicles with manual transmissions. A lot of the times you'll have to essentially tell the car that it's in neutral prior to exiting. And there's a series of things that you have to do in order for the vehicle to know it. Mm-hmm. The downside of that is if that system fails for some reason, like that fail safe, and you start it and maybe you accidentally left in first gear, the car can lunge forward, hitting someone or something. Worst case scenario. Hopefully, it would hit no one. Right. But that's one of the reasons why we as a company avoid installing them into manual transmission vehicles. Okay. We get that question quite a bit. I wish we had a better way of assisting folks with cars like that, but it's a slippery slope.
For sure. I mean, you can't, whenever there's somewhat of a human element, hey, we're all humans, we all make mistakes. And if that is, it's got to be something where it'd have to be 100% bulletproof. If it was left in gear, there is no way that car is starting or something to that effect. And I guess that doesn't exist yet. So it's not something that at Worldwide Stereo will do.
Correct.
But good question, because it comes up all the time.
It does.
Yeah. So, I know people. So what did I write down here? Yeah, the manual car. That was certainly a question I wanted to answer and talk about. When can you use like I know some cars I've seen you guys do where they're using actually the factory key fob, the key to actually do the remote start. Or I know when we sell them, they also come with their own. So is that something that many people can do? Can anybody do that with a regular remote, the key fob for the car?
Not necessarily. It depends on the year, make, and model of the vehicle. Okay. But most newer cars nowadays have the ability. You add on a remote start. Let's use Viper for the sake of example. Mm-hmm. You add a Viper product into the vehicle, and then that unlocks what's called 3 times lock remote start. So you hit the lock button 3 times, usually rather quickly, or else it won't register the 3 individual presses as being a series, and then the vehicle will start. The downside of these systems is that it may work well in the driveway when you're at home in the morning, but what about when you're at work? Where's the vehicle then? Is it in a parking structure across the street, buried out in a huge parking lot? So there's some things to consider as to what solution may work better.
Right, right. Because most, factory systems really have a small window or small distance you can actually
Mhm.
utilize the factory system. Is there a
Yep.
measurement on that? Is it roughly what, 30
It
feet?
kind of depends. I've seen anywhere from 30 to 50 feet.
Okay.
50 being rather rare, but I've seen some pretty impressive numbers for a factory remote, which is why Viper will give the ability to add on long range remotes. So these are the type of things that may go upwards of half a mile or a full mile, depending on the environment. And some of these remote packages offer what's called two-way feedback. So
Hmm.
if your car is nestled out in a parking lot somewhere, you can't see it, but if you tell the car to start, the remote will confirm via a visual indicator, usually a light flashing or an audible tone being played to let you know that the vehicle either A, did get it and started, or B, didn't get it and try again.
Yeah, that was something I had on my last vehicle with the two-way
Yeah,
system that we have, and it was just awesome.
it's phenomenal.
I do a lot of coaching. Well, not anymore. My kids are in high school now, but a few years back, I was doing a lot of coaching. And like when you're lugging that bag, you're trying to pick everything up and get it to your vehicle. I would always start it first, and then I could pop my hood from well over a football field or two away. Not a problem.
Hmm.
So by the time I got
Yep.
there, it was ready to load in. So a lot of convenience and built into having that long range, whether, like you said, it's a parking structure or just, you've parked
You just
far
can't
away.
see it.
You just
Yeah,
can't see
either
the
that or
car.
just
So
pure
yeah,
line of sight. Like it
yeah,
could be behind the, like if your car were behind the building at work, you can't see it. You don't know if it started. So
nope.
while the range isn't great, just the convenience of being able to not have to run to the exterior of the building to see what's going on is nice.
Yeah, yeah. I think we talked about this before too, and it's come up here. Steve had a follow-up question. What about seat heaters and coolers? So, it'd be awesome. Let's say, perfect prime example, it's really hot out today, right? Your remote start the
Mhm.
car, the air conditioning was previously on, but you also have those ventilated or cooled seats. Is there any way to also trigger that command to happen? Because that's usually a
Um,
toggle kind of thing in a car.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what's available. Sometimes they'll have it where, and this is rare, especially with seat heaters, no, not necessarily. Let me backtrack. A lot of the times with a seat heater, if you turn it on, it doesn't turn off until you actually turn it off. Meaning if you turn the vehicle off and turn it back on, generally that heated seat remains on. Cooling, I have less experience with that because it's not as prevalent as heated seats are.
Yeah.
But in the cases where it does turn off, let's say when you turn the key off and you turn it back on, some remote starts do give you the triggers necessary to actually turn that on. So it's vehicle specific is what I would call it, just to err on the side of caution.
If you could put a list together for me of the vehicles that it does it with, because being a polar bear, that would be a a feature I would want to have. I want the ventilated seats on at all times.
I will just charge a small commission.
That's fine. That's fine. So, Chris, I'd like you to actually, if you could, like go through what solutions do we really have for remote starters, and what are some of the differences between those, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, we've already spoken about two of them. One being the activate through the factory remote.
Okay.
Second would be adding the long range transmitters to it for the folks where that first solution isn't going to be good enough or not work well enough. And then the last one would be the one that is activated through an iPhone or an Android.
Okay.
We use Viper a whole lot, so I'll talk about them in this particular matter.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
But Viper has an app called Smart Start. So you download the app, which is free. You subscribe to the service, and how much you pay is depending on which plan you do. They have monthly plans, they have yearly plans, they have every 3-year plans. So the bigger the package, the better the savings.
Sure.
But at that point, range is almost a non-issue. You could have your car parked in San Francisco and start it from Philadelphia, all through that phone app. As long as you have cell coverage, you'll be good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Viper's newest Smart Start version operates off of Verizon's 4G LTE network, so it's got the best network behind it. So the likelihood of you or the car not being in service are probably rather small, unless you're on a not so great data plan with your cell provider. But in most cases, it works like a champ. It even gives the feedback on the remote or on the app itself, letting you know that, yep, car started at 5:34 p.m. It's running for 20 minutes. You can even lock and unlock the doors from there. So if you were sending out, let's say, Yeah, if you were sending out the kids to maybe put a few things in there because you're going over to your family for the holidays, let's say, you can unlock the doors. They run out, load it up, they shut the door. You're able to lock it right from the app again. So it's a pretty versatile piece. We use it quite a bit. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing I mean it seemed like me working more in the home side of things, smart homes, and we have all those kinds of features in a smart home, being able to lock and unlock the door or turn things on remotely, lights and things like that, and the cars are just following suit. They're becoming smart cars in essence as well, with having all these apps to control them, and even more so with putting, I guess it's going to grow, and this is just off the cuff here, with things like hotspots and adding internet connectivity, excuse me, to the car, being able to control it more with an app of some sort, whether it's from Viper and things like that. So I only see this category growing. Maybe they get to putting windows down or something like that, or turning the windshield wipers on and giving you all those features. That'd be really cool in the future to see.
Yeah, and we see it even now with factory installed stuff with push to start vehicles. Like it knows that there's a key in your pocket as you're approaching the vehicle. You grab the door handle, it unlocks the car. You get in, you put your foot on the brake, you push a button, it starts right up, all because of what the car recognizes a key being there. Just like when you're at home with the smart home stuff, it knows like what room you're in, what you may want to listen to, what lights should turn on, all that sort of stuff. So it's made its way into the vehicle a little bit, but you're going to see it more and more prevalent as the years roll by.
And I know too, when talking about remote starters, maybe going back 10 years to now, or maybe even a little bit further, I know it used to be common practice where you'd have to almost like lose a key to do the install. And now we see cars where they have the push, most new cars are going to have that push button start. So is that, how has that affected how we do the installations, going back again to the key to now?
You're right. I mean, 20 years ago, let's say, almost every remote start, you had to ask for a key that would be buried in the vehicle and would communicate with the ignition cylinder. So when you tell it to remote start, it basically sends an OK signal to the ignition cylinder, allows the vehicle to start. Nowadays, we almost never have to do that. There are some outliers like Volkswagen and Audi are a big one, where if you had a let's say 2015 Jetta and wanted a remote start, I'm going to have to ask you to bring 2 keys. You're going to get one back. The other gets buried into the dash, like I just said. But with push to starts, it sometimes, believe it or not, the installation has gotten a little bit easier because a push to start it's very much on the computer network in the vehicle. And that's where we tie in the remote start, is into the computer network of the vehicle to some degree. So it actually allows a little bit more efficient communication between remote start and the vehicle.
Okay. And I think one last final thing on this remote start that I want to kind of just maybe put some people's mind at ease about these things. I think some people out there might be worried about, if you put a remote starter in, we're messing with the ignition wiring and things like that. I mean, what do you say to people that are worried about that kind of, putting this kind of system in and maybe potentially messing up the car or something like that?
I've never seen a remote start in all my years mess up a car. I've never seen it prohibit from starting. I have seen dealers point the finger at a remote start issue, that maybe that's why a weird series of lights came up on the dash. Once my tech Frank takes a look at it, we generally are able to ascertain that it had nothing to do with the remote start. So, and the dealer really has to be able to prove that the remote start caused your gas tank to explode. And it's just not, it's really not feasible. I'm making that point for a reason, because it's literally, they can blame it on anything.
Because it's not like we're, again, my understanding of it, it's not like we're splicing it in. We're not cutting any wires in terms of the ignition or anything. It kind of runs in parallel with it. We're installing it around the system. We're not disrupting anything that's already in place, is kind of how I understand
Usually not. Yeah, usually it does sometimes require being spliced into a wire here or there, but it's very professionally done. It's soldered to ensure that we haven't damaged the integrity of the wire. It's shrink wrapped or electrical tape to again ensure that nothing it shorts out or grounds out where it shouldn't. But a remote start, as convenient as it is, it has to be installed properly, or else issues can arise. And it's why it's so important to get that done by a professional like us, as opposed to, possibly an auto body guy that works around the corner from you. I'm certainly not slighting them, but it's nice to deal with a company that has the support behind it too. Because what we have behind the scenes is access to Viper's direct techs, is what they're called. So if Frank, our tech, runs into an issue, he can pick up the phone and call these guys and say, hey, look, I have X vehicle in the bay. We're doing a remote start. This is what we're doing. And we run into this snag. What do you think? And a lot of the times they can just, within 20 minutes, they can help us diagnose the issue and come up with a workaround. So it's really nice.
Yeah, having that back end support is fantastic for sure.
Yep.
So I hope you all understand, remote starts, certainly safe, the convenience features of them. And just why don't you give our viewers here, Chris, just like a ballpark on a general, a basic installation on average. Obviously, reach out to Chris. Again, I'll put his information up here with any vehicle specific questions, because every car is slightly different. So, but on average, if somebody says, what does a remote start cost, to kind of jump into this, installed by Worldwide Stereo?
Assuming that we're just doing the one that's activated through the factory remote, assuming that's an option for the car.
Yeah.
It's usually, they start at about $339 installed and then creep upwards from there, depending on if you wanted to add a remote package or the Smart Start functionality for your iPhone or your Android. But I feel comfortable saying about $339.
Okay. Yeah. Again, can't hold you to that, just as a general guideline. Hey, is it $50? Is it $300? Like that. Where do we kind of start, so people get an idea of that? So, and we're obviously taking calls now, so please reach out to us and get that going. Because I will tell you, once the remote start season, as we call it, hits, those can't get installed before the holiday season. We're booking out to February, March. Just doing remote starts day in and day out, just, Ross and Frank just cranking them out, getting them done. So, get that in sooner than later and talk to Chris, and he can certainly set you up with that. So that's all we have for you on remote starts. I want to move to the next topic here of, I'd say, new age technology in a vehicle, and that's backup and dash cameras. We're seeing obviously a lot of those, and that's another installation thing, and that is very, very popular. Something that can also tie into vehicle safety. I want to start out. Let's talk about I think the first camera to the game was the backup camera, where so as I all know, you put the car in reverse, and on the screen there, you start to see the backup. So how can we add that to vehicles?
Well, it's going to be much like the remote starts. It's going to be really dependent on the vehicle itself. For example, in most cases, if we'd like to add a backup camera to the factory system, it's got to have a screen in there already. The screen doesn't necessarily have to have navigation and every bell and whistle, but sometimes there's adapters made by some of the companies that we carry that allow you to add a backup camera to that existing screen through a third-party adapter. So there's usually a couple pieces you need to make it work. We do that a lot with Jeep Wranglers, for example, where somebody has let's say a 2016 Wrangler with the factory navigation, but 2016 Wranglers didn't come with backup cameras. So through the use of a camera on the back, that third-party adapter, we can now get that signal to pass through to the screen.
That's pretty interesting. So
it's neat.
It's neat to be able to, use something that's already there. I know sometimes the factory installed screens can be a little bit lower res than some of the aftermarket ones, but serves the point of, you can now, when you're backing up, you can kind of be looking this way and that way, and then check the screen and see if you're coming close to anything. Do they, I know I've seen sometimes when you turn the wheel, you see like the lines move. Is that? Yeah,
that's called dynamic lines. Not every vehicle. A lot of the times, the camera, or at least that adapter, has to tie into the computer system in the vehicle, so it knows where the wheel's oriented.
Oh, okay.
Like when we add cameras to some of the BMWs we see, there's a dynamic kit option. So as you're twisting the wheel, the lines will shift to give you a better idea as to where the back end of the car is going to end up. But in let's say a 2015 Subaru Impreza, it's not going to do that because there's no adapter made that ties into the network like the BMW one does.
And I imagine those lines would not be admissible in court if you were to hit something. They're not that accurate as evidence. Look, it said I wasn't going to hit it.
Yeah, it said I would clear that.
Like, yeah. Just throwing that out there.
There should be one thing said though with backup cameras, and I think they tell you this in every manual. Like even if you get it with a factory installed option, is you should never ever use that exclusively. You should still be turning your head to look for traffic or people possibly running behind the vehicle.
Yeah, it can be kind of a trap. You just get so comfortable looking at that. You're sitting here like this, and you're not looking at
right.
other stuff like here, and maybe even in front of you as to what's happening. So don't
be aware.
Just be aware. You have to be aware of your surroundings. It's a tool like anything else to help you, but not be the predominant point of vision.
Right.
Sorry, I got to throw this up here. What's up, Fred? Thank you for watching. Dueling Beards. Hey,
Fred.
Where's yours? Come on, Fred.
Maybe that was an older picture.
Might have been. So replacing the existing. So now, okay, we figured out how we can add a backup camera to an existing system or existing car that already has a screen in there. And again, like to your point, it said you don't have to have navigation built in or anything like that. It can be in some cases just a basic screen. But let's say somebody comes in and either they don't have that already, or maybe we have the option of taking that out and putting something in. So let's talk about that path where we put in the whole system.
Yeah, I'll use that Subaru as an example again. You own a 2015 Impreza. You have just the base audio radio, so it's just a very small screen that shows what radio station you're listening to, and then all your knobs and switches.
Yeah,
that's something where that's removed, and you install like an aftermarket touchscreen, Sony, Kenwood, pick your poison. But you have that now it gets installed in that factory radio location. And then those systems generally have at least one camera input on them. A lot of the new ones are coming with multiple camera inputs. But at that point, then it has that dedicated input feed to tie into the reverse camera that we would install on the back end of the car. The other camera inputs that I just briefly mentioned can be like we'll see those a lot in like when we do slightly older Corvettes. Like if we do a 2012 Corvette, and say that the gentleman or the lady driving is just constantly kind of like clipping parking blocks as they park somewhere, you can put a camera in the front to help alleviate having to paint that bumper every 3 days. But that's traditionally what a front camera is used for. And I guess we've done some on some Wranglers that are more rock crawlers, so they like to see kind of what's coming up. So they know how to orient the wheel or whatever the case may be. So we'll do them on those types of vehicles.
Maybe like a really big truck or something like that too, where you can't really see the front bumper or something like that. I don't know.
It's just whatever may make your life more convenient, a little bit easier, a little less frustrating, like clipping that parking block or the front of the garage, like that, that garage wall.
Sure.
If it's less frustrating, it's an easier life.
So we had two cool questions that just came up here. Robert Cohen asks, can we add a DVR to a factory camera? Is there a way to add recording capability? I guess is what he's asking.
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen anything like that. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, Rob. And hello, by the way. It just means that I haven't seen it.
Okay. All right. That'd be kind of cool, though. And do these cameras give audio warnings? So when
there's some that come as like a full package where maybe they'll either come with backup sensors that can be flushed into the rear bumper, or the camera has something built into it to recognize that there's a moving object or just an object that's just kind of standing still. It'll recognize that something's there through the use of proximity sensors, and then give you an idea that there's something there. Yep.
I was gonna ask about that because I know on some of them, you get the grid lines that kind of like green, yellow, and then all of a sudden red. Is that something that needs to be calibrated, or is that already done?
Generally, it has to be calibrated with the aftermarket ones because they don't know what type of vehicle it's going on to. So it's usually something that we give folks an idea. A lot of people like to set it up by themselves because they have parameters they want to use, but we'll at least say, hey, this is how you do that if you'd like to change it. Some people go in and just turn those lines off because they find them distracting. So it kind of depends on how you plan on using it.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So, as we've discovered now with cameras, now we can do front, we can do back, we can add them to existing systems, or we could just put in a full new system, from scratch, and give you that better resolution, I guess, and clearer picture. Because I think a lot of the aftermarket head units that we can put in, the screens on them are just absolutely gorgeous. So you get a really nice, clean, clear image up there. Maybe have to be worried about. I mean, obviously, I would think with driving around dirt and making sure they're clean at all times, so you can see better and things like that. So, just do they do anything to compensate for potential rain and water on them to help to keep the lenses clear?
As much as they can. I mean, traditionally, it's just covered by the cameras, covered by plastic or acrylic or something that will take the abuse of dirt or stone or rain or anything like that. So, occasionally, especially if it's been you'll see it a lot during the winter, at least here in Pennsylvania, where you're driving along the roads and there's just tons of salt all over the place. Right. That will usually layer up on the camera. So you just want to take, even if it's just you wet your thumb a little bit and just wipe it off, just make sure that you get that coating of salt off so that you get a good, clean, uninterrupted image. Because you never know, that salt could be laying just perfectly and you never see the fire hydrant, for example, and you end up nailing it. So there is some manner of maintenance, I guess you would say, with the camera, but it requires next to no work.
Right.
Although I do want to say to your point with these aftermarket screens getting better and better, it's kind of exciting because Kenwood just released a high definition backup camera. I think it goes for about $199 or so. It only works with select Kenwood touchscreens. But it's a 1080p video signal. So you do get like a high def camera on the back of your car, let's say like near the license plate area, for example, which will help you see things in much more clarity versus the cameras that are out now. The ones that are out now are good. The Kenwood is very good.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Oh, sure.
Moving from, we had the backup camera and we have the front camera. The other thing that is becoming very, very popular is dash cameras. Oh yeah. So what's different about these? I mean, dash camera, I guess obviously it's going right on the dash, but what is that really meant to capture? Why is this becoming popular?
It's becoming popular because a lot of people are distracted drivers nowadays. Whether it's you or someone else, a lot of the times we're almost in tuned with if our phone blinks, beeps, buzzes, we're grabbing it to see what's going on. And in that split instant where you're turning and looking down to get it, somebody could, run in front of you, pull out in front of you, whatever it is. These cameras help capture incidents in real time. They're even built to the point where if you do, let's say a Ford pulls out in front of you, end up clipping them, maybe not hard, but, or maybe it is hard. It will actually, that camera will partition its memory aside, saving that event. So if law enforcement shows up because you've called to handle all the insurance stuff, you can show him or her exactly what ended up happening. Video doesn't lie. So there's no, I think he pulled out in front of me. It's like, no, that's exactly what happened.
That's right.
So it's nice to have that extra layer of security because a lot of the times when these things are happening to you, you're caught off guard, your adrenaline's pumping, you can't remember exactly what happened. So it's just nice to have that backup with you at all times.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not a he said, she said moment or something like that. You can show them the video proof. Look, my light was green, that was red, and this guy came and
there's no question.
It's closed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so that's really the main reason. So these cameras, they just focus out. They shoot out and into the front of the car.
Most of them do. Usually you have it hung up a little bit higher, sometimes even as far up as the rear view mirror, because you want an unobstructed view. You don't want, half the view being taken up by windshield wipers, for example, or the hood of your car. You want to be able to capture like the license plate of the car in front of you or any sort of distinguishing features of the vehicle maybe you only saw the side of. But there are cameras that have, they're designed for rideshare vehicles like your Ubers, your Lyfts, and all that sort of stuff, where the camera, the front camera is obviously facing towards the road, and then the rear camera faces the cabin of the vehicle. It's pretty neat because it helps keep those folks who've dedicated their time to driving you around. It gives them a sense of security because now if something's happening behind them, they'll have, again, proof of, that I don't know, that guy was dumping alcohol all over the back of your car. When you call the police, you have some evidence. So exactly, not that you couldn't smell that, but you get my meaning. It's just nice. I've been in a couple Ubers, probably a few months ago or so, and they had the cameras in place, and it's also reassuring for me as a passenger, because a guy who has less than great ideas in his head certainly isn't going to record the interior of the vehicle, and have evidence against himself. So I think that the person driving me is maybe a little bit safer because of that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So I like that. So all right, neat. That I didn't realize about the facing into the cabin there. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Do the cameras do anything? Again, they're facing front. I know we have we talked about the camera that we're putting like on the front bumper, and now we're talking about the dash cam that can fire forward and also back. Does it help out with anything or can it? I don't even know, with like lane assist or any of those other kind of features that are out there with cars?
Some of the cameras can, like there's a couple.
I guess it is.
Yeah, there's at least a Kenwood that I know of. That will do, exactly, lane departure. So if you're driving along and you are, say you're talking to somebody in the seat next to you, happen to look over, a lot of the times our hands will follow where we're looking. So before we know it, we're drifting towards the side of the road. Mm-hmm. The camera will actually kind of see the lines, the yellow line and then the white line, right. Yeah. And then go, "Oop, I'm breaking the plane of the white line." It'll start beeping at you to say, "Hey, pay attention, something's happening." They even go as far, believe it or not, for collision avoidance, where if, again, we'll use the same example where you're talking to someone and the guy in front of you slams on his brakes, the camera sees that all of a sudden there's an immovable obstacle right there. And again, it'll start shrieking at you to slow down or at least pay attention so that you can get around that vehicle. So they do help improve the safety aspect of driving.
Is that wired into the vehicle's speaker system, or is that its own little built-in speaker that it's beeping from?
It depends on the system. There's some that can be wired to like the Kenwood's the Kenwood dash cam can be wired to an applicable Kenwood touchscreen, and that would help give some prompts. Most folks aren't looking at a camera like that though. They're looking for something more standalone because maybe they don't want to replace their radio. Yeah. Those alerts come out of the built-in speaker in the camera.
Okay. And I think so, unlike the backup camera or we'll say the front bumper camera, when talking about recording these events, they have obviously they have memory in them, right?
They do. They usually come with maybe a 16 gigabyte SD card built into it. A lot of the times you can upgrade that. And the reason why you would want to consider upgrading it isn't necessarily to hold more content, but higher resolution content. Because a lot of the times you can go in and have it, like some of these cameras can record in 4K, for example, which are massive video files.
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to quickly gobble up the room on an 8 gig or a 16 gig SD card. So even if you dumb it down, then you're beginning to lose some of the clarity. So you may end up doing maybe let's say a 64 gigabyte card. You plug that in, now you have more memory at your disposal. The thing to remember, though, is that it's not like, if you're driving from here to California and that thing's on, once it reaches its capacity, it begins to then overwrite all of the non-incidents. Like if an incident occurs, like I said earlier, partitions it aside so it's saved for future reference. But all that time where non-incidents occurs, that's just that can just be overwritten. It doesn't matter if that disappears. So I'd say more often than not, most folks do end up upgrading the SD card just to have that extra room so that they can get higher resolution video in there.
Have any of them talked about again, back to our point of, smart homes and smart cars are becoming smarter and having hotspots and things like that built into them, or maybe even engaging a hotspot on your phone for the camera connect to and then do like a cloud-based storage? Have you seen anybody talking about that?
Yeah, we use a line called Blackview. They do that. You can connect you download the Blackview app, you subscribe to the storage, you pay for that cloud storage. And then you're exactly right, Adam. You can go ahead, link it to your phone, and then just upload it right to the cloud. So it doesn't matter if somehow it accidentally gets erased or overwritten. Yeah. You already have that sitting there that you can bring to court, for example.
Yeah, I think that sounds like the winner to me, because you never know. Like, once you get these things installed, I gotta imagine you kind of forget about them after maybe a couple months that you have it, and it's always recording.
Yep.
So you could potentially forget to, download everything on the SD card so you can save it or have it for some reason, or you may have erased that or something. That way, if it's a cloud base, you just don't have to worry about it. You can access it at all times and have it there for you. So that sounds like a winner to me. And actually,
Yeah.
if I could backtrack a little bit, because Steve brought up a question down here. Can a reverse cameras be wireless? What's their quality? And again, with smart cars and hotspots and things like that, or even broadcasting maybe their own wireless connection? And this is me just thinking as I'm talking about this. I mean, I know with Wi-Fi, at least, metal and things is a shield to Wi-Fi. So I think this might be a little hard, but is that being talked about, a wireless camera, reverse camera?
Wireless cameras have been out for a while. We don't use them. We don't sell them. We don't install them because they're too unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's heavily dependent on where you are. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, it'll probably work fine. If you are in a town with all of the other RF interference and everything else going on, that will begin to disrupt that wireless video signal. So if you're looking for something that's going to be rock solid every time you need it, a wired solution is always better.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Again, folks, dealing with people's Wi-Fi in their home, and we did a whole special on this. And when you learn about how Wi-Fi really works, and all the things that can disrupt it, it's really tricky to get right. And certainly a moving vehicle at 60 miles an hour with other moving vehicles around it, all the energy and RF interference and cell stuff, not to mention the metal, structure of a car, which, acts like a shield to Wi-Fi, that can only create results that are not predictable. And certainly when we're installing something, we want to make sure that it's going to be as rock solid as possible. So,
Right.
Steve, it sounds like they do exist, but it is somewhat of a not the best solution. It may work, and I'm sure some people say, "Oh, it worked great." And that does exist, but I would imagine there's more horror stories than success stories. So, but good question. I never thought about that. I mean, wireless in a car. Goodness gracious. Swear, I can't wait. My favorite car growing up was always Kit from Knight Rider. I mean, that when the day comes that I can get in my car and I can already talk to my watch. That was a big step. Like, that was huge.
Oh, gosh.
My dream of mine was always to talk to my watch, and I can do that now. So I got to imagine if I wait another 20 years, I could say, open my car door, pull up to me. I could get in and tell it to drive to Florida or whatever, and I could just sit back and take a nap. And I'm hoping for turbo boost. I have my
You're talking about like a Tesla. A Tesla does a lot of what you just wanted.
So they're getting close. Does it have turbo boost? I'm out.
No. Well,
okay.
they have their what do they call it? Insane mode or something, where it kills the battery that's in it, but you get ridiculous speeds.
So if
I think 0 to 60 is below 3 seconds or something. I'm sure there's a Tesla owner that will correct me, but it is very fast.
That's insane. So we're getting there. I'm almost have my Kit. Okay. So speaking of turbo boost and speed, the last thing
nice
we want
segue.
You like that?
Yeah, it's very good.
I hate segues. I fell off one once.
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. Moving into talking about speed, let's go with radar detection.
Oh yeah.
So that is, I think, the last thing we want to cover here, talking about vehicles and smart integration and that kind of thing. So radar detectors, I'm sure they've been out for a while, but what type of systems are there out there currently for radar detection? And maybe somebody doesn't know what we're talking about. So what are we talking about?
Well, radar detectors, you're right. They've been out for at least a couple decades now. I think at least a few decades now. I think early 90s, give or take, was when they first started coming out. We deal exclusively with the company K40, so I'm going to speak to what they offer. But nowadays you have, you still have the one that can pop up on the windshield. And I guess let me backtrack to answer. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer your question. A radar detector will essentially find, if you're driving down the highway and there's a police officer, let's say on top of an overpass, looking down, he is measuring speed with a radar gun. A radar gun will use radio waves to bounce off of an object, in this case, your vehicle. And then those waves will go back to the gun where it analyzes the signal and then can tell you the speed at which that car is driving on the readout on the gun itself.
Mm-hmm.
Radar is not nearly as accurate as its laser counterpart, which I guess we can get into in a little bit. For example, I think it's somewhere if they're 1,000 feet away striking your vehicle with radar, I think that the width of that signal is now close to 85 feet wide, which means that a lot of it goes past your car. So now the guy, let's say a little while back, his radar gun is on. He's picking up that there's radar in the area, and his radar detector is now being tripped. It's now kind of blaring at you, essentially telling you to reduce your speed, assuming that you're speeding, reduce your speed to the acceptable level because there's something in front of you that is reading, that is transmitting radar.
Okay. So the laser sounds obviously more accurate, but is there so the systems that we have in place go now? You talk about again the one that's the typical.
You have the traditional one that sits up on the windshield.
Yep.
It has depending on the model, some of them have radar built into the front, or radar receivers built into the front and the rear of it. Other ones just have front. The one we have from K40 has front and rear. And they also have what's called a laser diffuser built into it. And this is where I'll bring up the laser aspect of things. Okay. Laser is much more accurate. Generally, it's a pulse. And it's not something that, since, I think at 1,000 feet, it's only like 6 feet wide, or it could even be smaller than that. So the likelihood of it getting past the car and being picked up by someone else is much more unlikely. Yeah. So what the laser diffuser does is it not only detects that it's being hit by laser, but it can also measure the pulse in which it's being hit with, and then shoot that back to the gun, which is going to jam it. So the officer isn't going to get an accurate readout. Meanwhile, the laser diffusing system, again, is beeping at you, telling you to slow down. So by the time he reorients, realigns, and hits you again, at that point, you have to be doing the speed limit. They're on the lookout for things like, depending on what state you go into, they're on the lookout for systems like this. So I think in America, it's Virginia and Washington, D.C. that these things are illegal. They actually have devices. Law enforcement has devices that will look for radar detector. They're radar detector detectors. The better systems, like from K40, that they can't be found. Like these guys, as soon as the cops get a new radar gun, laser gun, radar detector gun, they get their hands on this. They can see how it works and what it's looking for, and then mask their system to be hidden from them. It's like a cat and mouse game all the time. It's almost like watching cops and robbers playing. Sure.
And it's this category always just makes me giggle a little bit. It's like, how could this be legal?
You know what? I'm ashamed to admit it. I still don't know. I think based on the research I've done over the years, it seems like there's some sort of loophole. I know there's federal laws in place that prohibit jamming. Technically, a diffuser is jamming, but there's something, or else none of these guys would be making it. Because K40 is not the only one that makes this laser diffuser. Okay. There's at least a handful of manufacturers that do this. So they figured out a way to keep it legal.
Yeah, whatever.
For now.
For now. as long as we possibly can. And don't they? I think you were telling me the other day. Don't they do something that they warranty the product in the sense of if you do get a ticket or something like that, right? Is that the?
Yeah. Yep. K40 has their the ticket-free guarantee. You're right. Essentially, for the first year of ownership, they have it where they will, if you somehow manage to get a ticket. They will pay the ticket. They will pay for any sort of court costs, like if you had to go to court, for example, and things of that nature. They feel like their product failed you in some way, so they want to help you in that financial aspect of things. But they have a very firm line as to where they will do that and where they won't do that. Mm-hmm. For example, if you are under the influence, nope. If you're speeding through an active school zone or construction zone, they will deny that too. And it's real hard to hide that from them because they're going to ask to see the ticket. And one of the things on there is going to be scribbled down by the cop saying, driving recklessly through school zone. So that's where they draw that firm line in the sand that they do not cross.
Sure. And then if you have the dash cam, you have the video footage of it. It's just everything's working against you at that point. Like
it's like I bought this to be safe and ended up, costing me thousands.
Oh well, yeah. So wow,
Uh,
I mean that's crazy with what
yeah.
we can do with the radar detection and things like that. Mark had well, Mark, I don't know if we really know the answer to this, but if the police uses those white lines across the road, does the police use radar for them, or is that more of a stopwatch thing? I always thought it was more of their timing, how fast the vehicle goes through the painted white lines, because there's so many feet apart, and if it's under 2 seconds or 1 second, obviously they would know that you're speeding. But I mean, I don't know.
You know what? I've never looked at that, to be honest. I thought that it was more like a stopwatch thing.
Yeah.
They sit there, they could have like the little timer, and you hit line 1, you click it, you hit line 2, you click it. And if it's under 3 seconds, let's say, you're speeding.
You have to be speeding. Yeah. They don't really know the time.
You couldn't transverse that much road in that short of a time unless you were breaking the law. Yeah. So Mark, I'm sorry to say I don't know exactly, but I think it's more like the second thing you listed.
Yeah. And this isn't a session on how to beat the police. It's just,
Right. Yeah. I haven't
We're
figured
talking about
it out,
technology on a car,
yeah.
radar detection. So, we talked about the different kinds of installation that we can do. And these things, if I remember right, you can put them they go on the front and the rear of the car, or both, or.
Yeah, the stealth systems is what they're called, because you brought up the one that hangs on the windshield. K40 has one of those as an option. So if you like K40, you only have to buy one thing, or consider one thing. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the stealth systems, this is where they essentially break that portable piece apart. So now you have a radar sensor that goes behind the front bumper, a radar sensor receiver that goes behind the rear bumper. Mm-hmm. And you could stop right there if you wanted to. Most folks don't, because they're going to be driving on the highway where police officers will be using laser guns to help measure speed. That's where those diffusers come in. The K40 recently revamped their stealth radar detection system line. And essentially, they were able to shrink the radar receivers to, it's not like half the size, but they were able to shrink it a bit to help with the installation process. But at the same time, the new technologies that are in this now offer some really cool things, like they call auto filtering, where it'll measure how fast you're driving and then set the sensitivity for the system. So if you're doing 60 miles an hour, it knows you're on the highway. It sends the sensitivity and the range longer so it can help perceive threats more rapidly. But if you're cruising around, let's say Philadelphia at 25, 30 miles an hour, it's lucky. Now saying that, your chances are good you're doing the speed limit wherever you are. So it's going to dumb down that sensitivity quite a bit to help stop any sort of false alerts from happening. No. But they are a very, very well thought out company. I've dealt with several manufacturers over the years, and the K40 stuff, just the build quality, the installation ease, and their customer support are second to none. They're very, very good at what they do. But sorry, I went off on a tangent there. I like this stuff. But
I couldn't tell.
The other piece, yeah, I know. And then the other piece you can add are what's called laser diffusers. And laser diffusers, those are those jammers I spoke about earlier. Right. They're not called jammers, but laser diffusers. They're small in size. They're only a couple inches wide and maybe about a quarter inch, half inch tall. Mm-hmm. These pieces are not hidden behind bumpers because they need to be sensitive to the incoming laser. So the moment you put it behind a piece of plastic, that is not going to work. So traditionally, these are the smaller black pieces that you see. Mm-hmm. But depending on the vehicle size, particularly the front of it, you can get away with doing 2 laser diffusers or sometimes 3. Like for example, when we've done a bunch of SUVs and pickup trucks with these things, we've done 3 because the front end of it is tall and wide. But then you come into the sports cars like Porsches, for example, and they don't have much of a front end. Everything kind of comes down to a point. So we just put a couple there instead. So we change our design process based on the vehicle that's coming in. There have been ones where we do just the radar system, and that's just perfectly adequate. There's other times where we do the full gamut of things because that particular client knew that they needed that type of protection. Yeah. So it's nice with that versatility. You're not locked into buying just one thing for X amount. You can do it a la carte.
Very cool. Very nice. Well, that was a awesome explanation. I can tell, like I said, you really like that category of stuff. It is neat. And it's amazing how it works. And like you said, to see the companies go back and forth with Oh, I got you now. Nope, I got you now. No, I got you
Yeah.
now. No, I got you now. No, I got you.
Exactly.
Like, just to try and
It's
stay on
never
top.
ending.
It is pretty cool. I want to remind everybody here, I want to share something with you. On our website, when you go to our car stereo page, we do have this fit guide there. So when you kind of click on that, what's the stereo fit guide, so you can put your vehicle in there and see what kind of speakers fit and things like that. So that's a very, very cool resource. Please take advantage of that. And then also on this page right here, I want to show you, these are some of the dash cams that Chris was talking about before that we have loaded up on here, and things that we can do. So check that out. If you have, again, vehicle specific questions, you're definitely going to want to get a hold of Chris, and there is his number right there for you. So reach out to him via email or call us. Again, the showrooms are open right now, Tuesday through Saturday, hours being Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5, and Saturday, 10 to 5. And just real quick, give us, Chris, the kind of the precautions that we're taking with doing a car installation right now, so everybody can feel comfortable with getting their car worked on, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We're asking folks, if you can, to drop the vehicle off the night before, so it has some time to sit with no one in it. From there, once we start the process, once we go out to the car, my installer has sanitizer and some cloths with them to help sanitize the things like the steering wheel, the seat, the dash, all that sort of stuff. Any sort of contact points that we are going to touch that the driver has been touching. Once that's done, he has a cover that will cover the steering wheel and seat covers in there too. Again, just to help kind of mitigate any sort of cross-contamination. Once the vehicle is done, then those covers can come off. We sanitize it again every touch point that we made, and then the customer can come pick up the car. I think prior we were doing like you kind of pick up after hours. We get the key to you. Now, since the showroom is open, you can come in, you can collect the key. We're currently not offering in-car demonstrations of the equipment that we're selling, but I can certainly do it remotely. On the phone. I know the product well enough to at least give you a general grasp of things. So we're not leaving you hanging. We're doing our very best.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly. So as we've gotten back up and running, any really cool projects? I thought we just finished a really neat one that we might have a profile on soon. Yes,
we had a Ferrari 458 come in that did upgraded speakers, added an amplifier. He had a custom subwoofer enclosure made by a company elsewhere that did a fantastic job and wrapping it and stitching it so it looks like a factory installed option. But we were blessed enough to get that vehicle in, work on it, and it sounded as good as the car looked. Like, it was just really, really cool when it was all done.
That's sweet. Yeah, I think we'll have something on our website soon under our project profiles of that vehicle shortly. Anything cool else coming up? I know, guys, we work on everything. I've seen boats come through here and RVs and campers and all sorts of stuff. I got any other cool stuff coming up?
Honestly, I know this will sound corny and cliche, but I think just about every car that comes in is cool. Like, it's always something different. Even like the hundreds of Wranglers we've done, each one has it's unique in some manner. But we have. I think the one that comes off on the top of my head is we have a Ford F-150 Raptor coming in that's going to get a pretty cool system. It'll have the K40 radar detector that we've been talking about, front and camera system that we also happen to be talking about, and a killer little audio system. So that's going to be a really cool build once we're all done with that. But yeah, again, I think everything we do is kind of cool.
Sure. I can't wait to see our first new Bronco come into our bay or something like that.
Yeah, that'll be neat.
Right.
Yep, that'll be real neat.
So folks, I've left Chris's information up there again. His phone number, 215-368-8343. That's the main Montgomeryville showroom. And of course, his email. Reach out to him for any vehicle specific questions. You want to have him look at it, bring it by. We can have the installer come out with them and kind of look at the vehicle and come up with a plan for your vehicle to offer some of these great services when it comes to dash cams and reverse cams. And don't forget stereos and amplifiers. I mean, that's our roots, worldwide stereo. So we can certainly outfit your vehicle with some great sound, as well as all of these other advanced features, we'll call them, or smart car features. I mean, maybe that's going to be the category going forward, smart car features. So
could be.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today, talking about everything car stereo. It's the second time on. It was a pleasure having you, and I'll see you tomorrow back in the showroom. To everybody out there, folks, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great time. Bye, Tori. That's my daughter. She's watching, so I'm going to give her a wave. Bye, Tori. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later tonight. And folks, thank you again for joining. This is Adam with Worldwide Stereo, reminding you to listen to music every day. So long.